Heads up, humanauts. This is JLL with a XENOSH alert. It's April 1st, 2018, but I advise you that this is most certainly not an April Fool skit. Now, over the past few months, I've been aware of a film that appeared called Black Panther. There was an enormous amount of hype and promotion around this film and a lot of coverage on the internet and YouTube, etc., etc. When I first heard about this film, I was struck by the name of the fictional country in Africa, which is the setting of the film. So it's called Wakanda, right? W-A-K-A-N-D-A. And of course, that's a word, that's a name on the minds of millions and millions of people lately due to the furor around this film. Now, bear in mind that this film comes with a large overload, in my opinion. It comes with a massive amount of baggage that has been planted on it by the social justice warriors and by the non-white groups who like to make a case against the white races. For example, well, this is what Africa would have been like had the white races not come and colonized it, had they not interfered, and had they not oppressed the black indigenous peoples and prevented them from realizing their own true talents and potential. So this is part of the big message that's coming through with the film Black Panther. I'm not going to address any of that. I'm simply going to concentrate this alert on the name of the fictional country, Wakanda. Doing so, I'd like to bring to your attention something that's quite outrageous. You may consider it to be quite outrageous, which, as far as I know, has not been noted, mentioned, discussed, or debated in the huge flurry of conversation around this film. Now, maybe I'm wrong, because there's a lot of things I miss, and I don't follow trends on the internet that closely. I hardly follow them at all, so I could be entirely wrong, and someone may have already pointed out what I'm going to point out to you now. When I heard this word Wakanda, I had a strange impression. I thought, that sounds familiar to me. Where could that come from? And I felt like I was being, coached or cued by that name, but I didn't know exactly where to look. So the first thing that came up out of the subconscious by way of suggestion, the subconscious is an enormous field of suggestion. It's like a big ocean, and occasionally fish pop up through the surface of the ocean, and those are the ideas and themes that your subconscious presents to you in the course of any day. So I just let my subconscious feed me a response, and what came up was, Macondo. It's kind of like a version of Macondo. It seems to me like the writers and producers of this film have taken the name of Macondo, which is a mythical place, and they have juggled with it a little to make it Wakanda. So you see? Well, what is Macondo? Well, that's not a difficult question to answer. Some of you out there who have ever read books, or may even continue to read books, might happen to know that one of the top 10 novels of the 20th century was called 100 Years of Solitude. The author is Gabriel Garcia Marquez, And the novel falls into the genre of magic realism. The novel is set in the Amazon, and the name of the fictional village where the action takes place is called Wakanda. So I had that association to Wakanda when I heard Wakanda. And so I thought to myself, I thinks to myself, or myself thinks to me, well that's, kind of a rip-off, but doesn't really matter very much. It kept nagging me though. I kept thinking, something about that is not quite right. I'll give you a bizarre analogy. Suppose that you had a wad of chewing gum stuck on the end of your nose. And you didn't actually know it was there, but you could sort of feel a sensation. So then you get the idea, hey, there's some chewing gum stuck on the end of my nose. Can I see it? Well, imagine trying to see it. You're moving your head this way and that way, and you're moving your eyes down. It's a bit hard to see a small dot of chewing gum stuck on the end of your nose. So I was in that kind of a situation with this word, Wakanda. It wouldn't go away. Well, today I realized that the little wad of chewing gum that's been bothering me since I heard the name Wakanda is not stuck on the end of my nose. It's stuck right between my eyes, on the bridge of my nose. What do I mean by that? Well, the bridge of your nose you can't see. You can sort of see the end of your nose, right? Can't see the bridge of your nose at all. I couldn't see something that was right in front of me. I couldn't see Wakanda. I couldn't see what the name actually is until this morning. Then I turned to my website, metahistory.org, and I was doing a little bit of revision on a piece called Mesotes, the Matrix of Animal Powers. And in that piece, where I discussed the Gnostic Christos, the concept of the Gnostic Christos, which is utterly different from the Judeo-Christian concept of Christ the Savior, I found allusions, I have found and I have presented allusions to the spirit of the wilderness in Native American lore. So in particular, I cite the example of white buffalo calf woman, who is a figure in the folklore and mythology and in the sacred rituals of the Lakota Sioux. And I was looking over some material I'd written on that, and then it suddenly hit me. Wait a minute. Wakanda, spelled exactly in that way, is a word from the language of the Lakota Sioux. And I believe it's a word that is shared across a number of Native American tribes. The Native Americans had a name for the great spirit that permeates all of nature. That is to say, not an immaterial spirit, but the living presence of nature itself, which they called Wakanda, or Wakantaka, or Tanka. These are Lakota Sioux words. I didn't recognize when I first heard Wakanda in the huge flurry of chatter around the film Black Panther. I didn't realize that it was a direct appropriation of the Lakota Sioux word. And this is not just any word in the vocabulary of the Lakota Sioux. It is the word that would be equivalent, to God, to the divine. Wakanda is the divine. So what has happened? What has happened here in the use of this term within this film with no acknowledgement of where it comes from. You know, you hear a lot of BS and whining and nonsense on the internet about cultural appropriation, right? Everyone knows what cultural appropriation is. If I decided to go to a Halloween party and I wore a great feathered bonnet of a Sioux chief, that would be called cultural appropriation. I'm not allowed to dress like a Sioux chieftain. Yet, the people who have written this film, produced it, and promote it are allowed to steal, verbatim, the single most sacred word from the vocabulary of the Lakota Sioux and many other Native American peoples, and appropriate it to a blaxploitation film, which is basically what Black Panther is. It's a cheap grade B blaxploitation film. So they give the name Wakanda to this fictional black community, having taken it, having flagrantly stolen it from its genuine origin, from the setting and culture of those peoples who are not African and who are not black, to whom it belongs. So my XENOSH alert is to simply that, to alert you to this egregious and extremely arrogant act of cultural appropriation. Now, look at who wrote Black Panther. Look at who conceived of the character and the storylines. Look at the two principal authors. Look at who they are. Look at the world to which they belong. You'll see why this particular incident merits a XENOSH alert. Once again, it illustrates, and there are so many instances of this, how the XENOSH steal from every other culture and race in the world due to their fundamental lack of creativity and their dishonesty, profound dishonesty. If you go and investigate it, you'll see that there is a link from the Black Panther film Wikipedia page to Wakanda. And you click on the link and Wakanda comes up and it says, yes, the name of the fictional country in Africa might have been taken from the Wakanda of the Native American Indians. It might have been taken. That's as if I were to say, I were to establish for myself an avataric identity on YouTube, calling myself Flash Gordon. You know, a little play on my name, right? On my family name, you know, Lash the Flash, right? Flash Gordon. And someone were to say, oh, well, it appears that he may have taken his name from the science fiction hero, Flash Gordon. You wouldn't buy that for a minute, would you? Well, don't buy it when the people on Wikipedia, and you know who they are telling you, oh, it just might be a coincidence or a coincidence, or it just might be that they took Wakanda from those Indians over there. You know, maybe. Well, I tell you, it is outright bold theft, period, and needs to be exposed as such. So, there's my point. There's the takeaway of this XENOSH alert. And so, until the next time, the next alert, this would be Heretic 1 standing tall with the Sigma salute. Over and out.